So Innova low-key released a bunch of different new runs of Destroyer this year. I think more than previous years. I have almost all of them with me here right now. I'm not including any like stock runs, so that's going to be your Pro, your Blizzard, your Champion, or your Star, because I think those are pretty much the same as years previous. But I do have a stock run of Halo Destroyer here because this is different than their normal stock run of Halo Destroyer from years past. I'm also missing of the Tour Series releases, Bradley's Tour Series and Henna's Tour Series. I just didn't happen to pick them up, and this is sort of like a last minute sort of video idea because I just had a bunch of these Destroyers and haven't really tried much of them this year. And I bag Destroyers, so I figured why not come out into a field and test them side by side to see how they fly and see, you know, for you guys. And instead of going onto a course and throwing 5 different Destroyers in every hole, I'm just going to throw them out in a field. I'll give you some shot tracing to kind of see how they fly in relation to one another. But my prediction is the new Halo, based on throwing these a little bit, I think the most understable is probably going to be the new Evelina Destroyer, which a lot of people have been talking about, and I might do a whole video on this disc reviewing it on the course. I think next in stability will be the Philo Destroyer. Now this is a little bit lighter weight. This is a 168. His run specifically comes in lighter weight, so if you like lighter Destroyers, you can get yourself one of these. He always releases every year a Swirly Star Destroyer in slightly lower weight. Then I think next up in stability will probably be the stock run of Halo Destroyer for 2024. I think these are actually fairly neutral with a little bit of stability. And then somewhere at the top, we have Calvin Heimberg's Proto Glow Halo Destroyer, and then the Champion Halo Glow Destroyer from Owen Scoggins. So we're gonna test all these out. I'll throw one flat, one Anhyzer, one Hyzer, and then maybe like a big distance shot or like a forehand or something, and kind of see how they fly. But first of all, let's just do my prediction. We're gonna go with Evelina first. Try and throw it flat. Yep. Very nice. Now, just for conditions wise right now, it's a little cold, so they're gonna be a bit more stable than if it's like, I think it's like 45 degrees out, so a bit cold. I'm not gonna warm up, so I might be throwing these a little weaker. And there's a little bit of, I think a little tiny bit of wind coming this way. Also, sorry if you can hear the thruway over there. It's like rush hour time, and I think there's just a lot of people driving around right now. I'll try and cut it out of the audio. Next up, we have the Philo Destroyer. This is a great forehand destroyer, so I'll definitely try and throw a forehand with this. I've had this in my bag for a lot of the year actually, so it's a little, maybe a little bit beat up, but the rest of these are pretty new. Got over on that a little bit, but you can see just how much, just a slow panning turn, but it definitely fades out. It's very nice. Okay, I think this will be a little bit more stable than those two for sure. Yeah, see, very little turn, kind of just comes back nice and neutral. Very nice flight though. Okay, I'm gonna guess that this Calvin Destroyer, this new one, is less stable than the Halo, Champion Halo, just because to me, Champion Halo feels like it's gonna be more beefy. We'll give it a go. I've never thrown this before. I have no idea how it's gonna fly. Whoa! Okay, I gave that way more Anhyzer than I wanted to, I guess thinking because it was going to be a little overstable. It actually really turned out of my hand. That was incredibly surprising. All right, let's go with the Champion Halo Destroyer now and see how this flies. These are kind of just like somewhat neutral shots. I'm not trying to hit like too much of an angle, just trying to get them out of my hand relatively flat. They might come out a little bit of Hyzer. I might kind of pull over on them a little bit. I'm not really trying to hit too much of a similar angle, so I think we'll get a better flight comparison when we do like Hyzers and Hyzers, maybe the forehands as well. That also got a decent amount of turn on it, which is very surprising. Usually those Halo Destroyers are more stable. I'm gonna go pick them up. I'll give you kind of relative distances. I'm not gonna worry about ranging them because they're all gonna go probably about the same. They're all Destroyers. Everyone knows how far they can throw a Destroyer. I'll let you know if any of them are like significantly different in distance or anything, but I'll go pick those up, come back, and we'll throw them again. All right, we got sort of an interesting grouping there. The two shortest were the 2024 Halo run and the Evelina run, and both the most left. Then as we get more turned over, we have the Halo Champion and the Philo Destroyer being at about the same distance, a little further, a little bit further right, and then just barely further than that, and the furthest right by quite a bit is the Kelvin Destroyer. Now, I do think the wind has picked up while I was throwing those. It's more of a consistent left to right now, so it might have pushed them out a little more, and I was trying to throw kind of flat where my natural release, as opposed to being flat, is a little bit of Hyzer, so I might have been pulling on them a little bit too, just because that's not my like stock shot release. So now that I'm a little warmed up, we can try to keep some consistency here. I'm gonna try to throw them on more of a stock Hyzer and see what kind of movement we can get out of them. So I'm just gonna keep it in the same order, starting with Evelina Destroyer. Little stock Hyzer, we'll see how it goes. We'll see which ones we can get a little flip out of and which ones just kind of Hyzer out. See, there we go. That flipped up very fast. Kind of threw it a little low. Wind pushed it a little bit to the right, but it flipped up pretty quickly. All right, let's go with the Philo now. Just a stock sort of Hyzer flip. Less under stability. Flipped up, started to turn, but comes back. Kind of what I expected from those two. The Evelina one definitely turns over a lot. Okay, 2024. I kind of threw almost a stock shot last time, so I'm expecting pretty similar results here. Maybe a bit more stability, just because I'm not trying to throw it flat. Yep, coasts, fades, so good. That might be, so far that might be my favorite one. It just flips up a little bit and comes back. It never turns over on you, even when the wind's pushing right a little bit. Nothing crazy, like anywhere between 5 and 10 miles an hour. Might have picked up to closer to like 7 or 8 miles an hour, kind of closer to 10, but nothing insane. And I think that one's gonna beat in to be the best. Like throwing that for a year, getting it to flip up just a little more than it is, ride a little more, but still have that little bit of stability. I really like that one out of the box already. Okay, now let's get these halo ones, these sort of more domey halo ones with the Kelvin and Own. See if we can get them to hold a Hyzer a bit more and not flip up as much. Definitely gonna put way less angle on it with the Anhyzer. Oh, I threw that really high. It kind of flipped up. I think I might have, okay, well, that's a bummer, but, and the wind's picking up a little more. We have the, I think the Owen one is pretty similar to that one as well in terms of stability, so we should see pretty similar result. I'll try and get this a little bit less nose up there. You know, I think I still came over on it. I have a hard time throwing a Halo Destroyer without kind of pulling it a little bit, just because that's how I throw them. I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I expect those not to really turn at all. It might be a little bit of the wind, even though I'm pulling them a little bit, like I'm not releasing them on a good angle. Granted, it's been like a month since I've played disc golf, so don't expect me to have all my angles be perfect. But yeah, those two Halo runs, the two ones I expect to be beefier, really aren't finishing out how I expect them to. I want to throw them all on a pure Hyzer line, like actually like arc it out and see if it flips up. Because I know like the Evelina one is gonna flip up out to the right and then come back. I want to see if I can get some of these other ones that I expect to be stable to really hold a Hyzer, especially into like a little bit of left to right wind where you're gonna want it to have that stability. It definitely has it at the end of the flight, but maybe because they're domier, they just seem to be moving right really early in the flight. All right, I'll go pick those up, get the results. Sorry if I'm a little out of breath. I'm like running to get these so I can beat the sun. But the most stable were these three. So we have the most stable was this one. I think mostly because I gave it a better angle, but it was the most left of all of them. And these other two were about, we had a little bit less stable as this one, but I think a lot of that was the nose up I gave it, so it's kind of inconclusive on that. The Philo one got a little bit more right movement than the other Halo ones, but it still had that stability at the end, which is really nice. Just kind of a slow panning right movement and then just a little bit of fade at the end. The least stable were these two by a lot. This one was not as far. This is actually the furthest flying one. I do think I threw this one a little low, and the Own one, I think I got over on it a little bit. I'm kind of expecting it to be really stable, but maybe I'm not trusting myself on these stock shots quite as much. So what I'm gonna do is kind of more of just a straight Hyzer, not like a Hyzer flip, not really trying to turn it over or anything. I'm just kind of gotta, you know, throw 380, 400 on a Hyzer line, just arc it out to the right, see how these react. So same order. I do think this one's gonna be kind of hard to do that with. It's very flat and pretty flippy. I do feel like it's just gonna flip up to the right and move over, but I'll try and get it on like a stock Hyzer. We'll see what we can get from this. I really hope that I can see a little bit more integrity from these two, because even though I'm not throwing them perfect, I'm seeing a lot more movement than I would expect from sort of that class of sort of domey halo destroyer, which is a little bit interesting. Yeah, I threw that pretty good. Flipped up quite a bit, but made its way left at the end. Really not bad. Now the Philo destroyer, kind of pulled that one left a little bit, left it a little, released a little early. Yeah, not a ton of flip on that one, just kind of coasts on that Hyzer line the whole way. Pretty nice, to be honest. All right, 2024 stock run. I think we all know what this one's gonna do. Very dependable. Probably most dependable of the bunch. Yeah, probably a little bit of nose up, but comes right back. No problem at all. Okay, here we go. Let's see what we can do with these. I'm gonna try and swing these ones a little more and just have them a pushing Hyzer out to the left, out to the right, and moving back left. Don't want to flip things up too much, just pushing on Hyzer the whole way. Yeah, that's nice. I like that a lot. It didn't get left like I wanted to. I feel like with halo destroyers, you really expect that dump at the end. And this is my first time throwing that disc, and there really wasn't a whole lot of dump, which is a little interesting. I threw it a little lower than all the rest of them, for sure. But I kind of wanted a bit of a redo with that one. This one I'll give a little bit more height for that big swinging Hyzer. See how this one goes. I really want this one to be overstable. I'm hoping that it's not me. I want to bag this really bad as my overstable destroyer. Oh, I slipped. Well, I gave it the height and it came back. I slipped really bad though. Man, I feel like that was just so inconclusive. But if I can get anything from it, it's that the more understable ones, I would say the Evelina one is like super squirrely. You really only throw it when you have a ton of space and you're okay with it turning over. The Philo one is like really dependable, but still flippy. The 2024 run is just dependable all around, like never does anything different than what I want it to. And then the other two Halo ones seem to be a bit squirrely. That Kelvin one, the glow one, definitely looked a little better on that last one when I was going more for just a pure Hyzer as opposed to a Hyzer flip. But unfortunately, that last one I slipped pretty bad, so I didn't get a good read on it. It didn't turn over, but I threw a Halo destroyer about a mile up in the air. So I want to throw some forehands. Might give me a better read on this because I tend to not really turn over my forehands unless I'm really trying to crank on them. So we'll do a couple forehands with these. Hopefully these Halo ones can feel a little better on forehand than they are on backhand, because I'm sure they're good discs, but for how I tend to throw, they seem to be a little squirrely, and I'm a little tired. So anyway, enough yapping. Okay, so I mean, they were all more or less stock Hyzers. These three though were the furthest left, with kind of predictable with their stability. Nothing to write home about with those. Pretty boring. These two were the furthest right again, and I expect them. They're the most domey, and they're traditionally the most overstable with being a domey halo run. I expect them to just move left. The only thing I can think of, other than user error, because now these have been on the right the most on every throw. I don't think I'm like screwing it up that bad from throw to throw. Maybe there's some subconscious thing going on where I'm trying to throw them on the same line, so I'm pulling these a little bit more. The only thing I can think of is because these two are noticeably domier than the other ones. Like, for example, if we look at the Champion run versus the Evelina run, the Evelina run is very flat. The Champion run has a good amount of dome on it. So maybe because there's more dome, there's more room under the flight plate, we're getting like sort of showing the blade to this crosswind coming in, and a little bit more wind's getting under it as it comes under the wing, and so it's pushing it more right when it gets under it. I don't know. Now that I think about it more, it doesn't really make sense. Let's throw some forehands. We'll see how these are for forehands. I'm gonna just sort of try to throw them on Hyzer, nothing crazy. Just gonna try to throw like a natural forehand. I don't think I've thrown a forehand in a while, so my apologies if these suck. This also might help with the difference in wind direction. Now we're getting the crosswind pushing us to the right. So if my theory is right about the halo ones being domier and having the wind kind of make them turn over more, maybe that with the wind pushing them to the right, we'll see them have a little bit more help with their stability. Little flip up, pretty much dead straight. Not bad for my first forehand in like a month with no warm up. Don't do that, by the way. Don't throw destroyers forehand without warming up. Philo destroyer, this has been a forehand, just almost exclusively forehand only destroyer in my bag for a good portion of the year, so should be pretty easy for me to get a good, decent flight out of it. Yep, tiniest bit of turn, nice little spike at the end. Very good, love that as a forehand disc. Doesn't get all squirrely on me and turn over, even when I give it some good power, but I can get it moving pretty far, pretty easily without a ton of power. Really like that disc. All right, what's turning out to be my new favorite, the 2024 stock halo run, kind of a sleeper. Very overstable for the forehand there. Definitely threw it on Hyzer, but just kind of dumped out. Okay, redemption time. Calvin 2024, here we go. Let's see it just be stable for a forehand. We saw the first two, they flipped up a little bit, okay? So if these flip up on a forehand, I think we can solidly say they are just not overstable for a halo destroyer. There we go. Oh, and it looks more stable than any of them. All right, maybe my theory's right. Maybe the wind is playing a big factor, and maybe I also suck right now after not playing any disc golf for like a month straight at throwing the disc on consistent angles. Owen Scoggins, champion halo destroyer. I'm expecting a pretty similar result there. Definitely gave that one the most Hyzer, but you can still see how stable it is. Super dependable. Okay, I feel pretty good about what I've learned here. I do want to go grab the two halo ones that I wasn't throwing that well and try and give them one more try at a stock shot into this crosswind, because I feel like I didn't give it a fair shake, and I was throwing those two last every time, so I'm inevitably sort of the most tired from throwing them. So I want to just leave out the first three that I've already got a good feel for and just throw those two and see how that goes. Okay, so I feel really good about the results I just got there. As predicted, Philo and Evelina destroyers, pretty much same distance, pretty much like literally, I forget which one was further. I think it was the Evelina one because it's a bit flippier, but they both landed right next to each other. Right, they're flatter, they're gonna kind of cut through the wind a little more, flip over, come back. They're gonna get like the most distance because they have that understability to get a nice flight out of them, so nothing surprising there. The shortest one was the 2024, which is not a knock on it. It's overstable, it's not super domey, so it's gonna just cut through the wind, be stable, and get to the ground. So not surprising at all there either. What is kind of, I guess, surprising but also reassuring is these two went just as far as the ones that I got a good amount of turn out of, but they moved way further right. They were about the same, both in line with each other, exact same like width movement with the stability, but they went just as far as the flippy ones. And I think the reason for that is they're domier, and so you're showing the bottom of the flight plate to the wind. More wind's gonna get under the disc, it's gonna carry it a little bit more, and so not only are they the most stable, but they actually flew pretty dang far. So with the right wind, I think these are actually really nice, and you can use the wind to your advantage to get a lot of distance out of them. I'm gonna try and throw these on a nice stock line just once more. I think the wind has died down just a tiny bit since the start of the video, and just see if we can reproduce the same things I saw at the beginning of the video, because I'm just not happy with those throws, and I feel like I must have introduced some sort of user error on my part. So we'll throw the 2024. Not gonna try and overthink it. I'm just gonna throw it on like a stock shot for me and just watch it go. That's more what I'm thinking of with a halo destroyer. It did, if you're paying attention, it did flip up a little bit. I do think having it be the fourth and fifth disc I threw each time probably played into me being a bit tired and rounding a bit more, or pulling on it a bit more. If you've ever done field work, you probably know you're gonna be a little more tired on your later throws when you're going through your bag. So another one, halo champion, Owen Scoggins, just gonna try to do the same thing. I was seeing a little bit of flip out of that though, so not like that 2021 or like early 2020 halo destroyer that you kind of expect to be really, really beefy, that just it cuts through the wind and is really overstable. but we'll give this a try right here. Wow, that flipped a lot. Definitely didn't turn it over, but it didn't do, I mean, and there is the wind, so that might be some of it, but just one more with this. I'll try to throw it just the same, just to kind of show. I think those are flipping more. I think it's because they're a bit domier. The wind's moving it a bit more. It's wanting to get right before it gets left. In my mind, maybe I'm wrong, but from my experience and in my mind, the way I think of it is a domier disc means more left to right movement. And so a really overstable disc might flip a little bit, but it'll bite back really hard. And a domey understable disc is gonna wanna just turn over, where a flatter disc is gonna be more of a slow pan, so like less exaggerated turn. It's just gonna be nice and slow. So like a flat putter is gonna just glide and slide. If you think of like a Luna, right? Lunas aren't domey, so you throw them, even if they turn over, it's just really, really, really slow. But a halo destroyer that's a little bit beat up, it might move right, but it's gonna bite back and finish. You're not gonna see that out of like flatter discs like mid-ranges, like a Hex or a Luna or anything like that, an AVR. All right, another stock shot with this. I think, yeah, a little flatter, similar stability, but just wants to get left. Yeah, like less flip. It might be hard to see with the trees in the background, but basically what I'm looking at is how long does it stay out to the right? It's going out, right? And it's hanging out, hanging out, hanging out. And I see the other one kind of biting back a little earlier. I'm starting to see it fall out of the air sooner, where the other ones are just kind of hanging out up there. They're hanging out, and they don't really want to fall, they don't really want to fall, and then they come. So they're not turning all the way over, so the angle's flipping, but they're also not fighting out as early as I would want. So maybe the sort of flatter destroyer, that's kind of a lesson, is you want to throw something a little flatter and overstable, maybe like a Firebird, like a flat top Firebird that won't let the wind push it, it'll just fight and cut right through the wind. I guess we'll top it off with two just big Anhyzers with the more understable discs, and then give my final thoughts. So most understable, Evelina. Let's just give it a nice big panning Anhyzer. I don't think either of those other two discs are gonna, like I'm gonna throw them on Anhyzer and they're just gonna fight out and suck. So we're not really throwing those on Anhyzers until they get beat up. But these will be really nice out of the box on Anhyzer, so let's give it a little go. Yeah, very understable. I could have given that way less angle and it would have panned out really nice. Kind of forgot that there was this wind moving, but it didn't turn into a roller. It did pan out. It was nice. I think I could have hung it out a little more, but you can see that is a really, really good turnover disc for a destroyer. And like I said, it's not domey, so it's just gonna slowly pan. If you want a destroyer that's just gonna slowly pan, it's nice and understable. Really, really like that one. Okay, Philo, this is also flat, but I think a little more stable. I think it'll probably slowly pan, but we'll see a bit more fade at the end. Yeah, I tried to give that the angle I was giving the other one. That's coming out. That's the angle I should have given the other one, and it would have went really far. I'm gonna go pick those up, give my final thoughts, because I think the sun is more or less gone at this point. Okay, so to wrap things up, if I were to pick a favorite out of all these, you know, I really, towards the middle, was saying this 2024 one was gonna be my favorite. I did come to really like this Philo destroyer for its reliability, but good amount of turn that you can get. And as I got more of a feel for it, I think I had a misconception about how this Scoggins Halo Champion destroyer would fly. But as I figured it out a little bit more, I started to appreciate a bit more its characteristics and like how to use it properly. So I think at the end of the day, well, I'm gonna go through my thoughts on all of them and I'll leave my favorite for last. So this is the flippiest, that Evelina destroyer. It cuts through the wind pretty well. I mean, it's gonna turn over if it's windy, like don't get me wrong, in a headwind, but like with a left to right wind, I think it's gonna have a little bit less of an impact than a domey destroyer. So it's definitely really nice for a nice understable flight, like really good for AMs, probably a tick higher than the Racer. I'm gonna do like a whole video on this disc because it's really pretty and it flies really nice. I tried to recently, but it was way too windy and this disc is kind of flippy, so I'll do a whole video on this disc eventually, but it's nice. I want to get more of a feel for it, but in this sort of crosswind and with what I'm looking for, just a little bit too one-dimensional in terms of being kind of a flippy bomber disc to really win my heart over. The Philo destroyer I really like. It's super dependable. It has a bit more stability. that slightly lighter weight is really nice for AMs, for shorter arms, and of course for forehands. I like throwing a little bit lighter of a disc for forehand just because I don't get as much power throwing a forehand. But to me, it is a bit one-dimensional, which is going to knock it down a peg. I'm not really throwing it on backhands. I'm not really throwing it on distance lines. I'm not throwing it on Hyzers. I'm really just throwing it when I want a dependable shot, when I want something a little bit lighter weight. Maybe if I'm throwing over water, just because I don't use it that as much. But mostly for forehand. It's a really great forehand disc, but in terms of my uses, it's one-dimensional in that sense. So it's great, but it's not going to be my favorite. The 2024 Kelvin Destroyer, kind of flippy-ish for like an overstable halo destroyer. It's not flippy by any means, but it's getting more flip up on a Hyzer shot than I was expecting, and it's not fighting the wind as much as I would want either. I don't really know where this fits in the like halo destroyer lineup over the years, and it's hard for me to really love it for anything because it doesn't, I think, break the mold for like anything really. We've seen so many halo destroyers over the years, and nothing's jumping out at me with this one where I'm like, oh, this is great. Like it feels, I don't know, the glow plastic honestly probably feels a little bit worse than the star plastic, but if you really like glow, it's nice. I guess it's nice for this time of year to have a glow disc, but it's really nothing special to me. It's just a halo destroyer. It's a little flippier than I expected, but nothing crazy. So kind of just meh in my opinion. And I think this is going to be my second favorite, the Owen Scoggins Champion Halo Destroyer. It is not as overstable as I would expect being Champion Halo. It is, though, going way further than I would expect. It feels more like a 2-year-old 2021 Kelvin Destroyer, like a 1 or 2-year-old one that you beat in a pretty good bit, where it's getting a little bit of flip out of it, but it still wants to fade at the end, which for me is a really, really good slot in my bag. It's not really cutting through the wind and just fighting through it. It's kind of riding the wind, but still has that stability for you. So it can do really nice things, and it feels really good in my hand. The Champion Halo, whatever, this mix, it feels really good. It feels almost better than other Champion plastic I've tried. I don't know if it's like a newer blend or anything, but I like it, and it looks really nice, and Owen's an awesome person, so I love supporting her discs whenever I can. So like a huge fan of this. The only knock I would say on it is, even though it goes really far, it does seem to be a bit squirrely. So if you're off on your angle a little bit, especially with a little bit of wind, even like a minor 10-mile-an-hour crosswind, it seems like the wind can get a hold of it a little bit. And when you're playing with OB, you know, for me, if I'm playing on, you know, Fox Run for Brewster Ridge Open, I might not be pulling this out of the bag for some of these shots where I just know I got to stay in bounds. Number one has to be the 2024 stock run of Halo Destroyer. It doesn't fly the furthest. It doesn't like move in the air, do anything crazy. It's just so dependable. It feels really good. It does what I want to. I feel like as I beat it up, it's going to become really, really nice, really, really good flying disc, and just super, super dependable. Some of these 2020 Kelvin Destroyers that I throw, some of them, not all of them, the less domey ones are kind of more like those Evelina ones where they're like pretty nice out of the box, maybe a little understable, and they beat in to become pretty much rollers, where like the other ones that I get that are a bit domier, they beat in to be real, like they start pretty overstable, and I'm like, I don't know, this is maybe a little bit more overstable. I could just throw my Halo Destroyer, but as I beat it up and I get like 6 months to a year into using it, then that's where I start to fall in love with it, because not only is it really dependable, but I can get some pretty good distance out of it. So this kind of feels like that. These domier, more overstable are those 2020 runs, which it feels like this will be a really good way to replace those, as they're very hard to get my hands on these days. So really dependable, feels like it'll beat them really nice. And the second place pick, the Owen Scoggins Destroyer, I feel like as this beats in, this will be a really, really nice, pretty overstable, just like bomber disc where I can get a lot out of it, but it's pretty overstable. Like I said, that sort of really beat up 2021 Kelvin Destroyer. So yeah, my winner here is the Halo Destroyer stock run for 2024. Very nice, and you can get, I think, pretty much all of these at otbdisc.com. I know with Innova, sometimes it's hard to get shipments for these, so OTB doesn't always have them. But if you do want to buy any of these, I know I bought a bunch of these on OTB. You can use, I want to say I at least bought these two on OTB. I can't remember for the other ones because I bought them a while ago. If you do want to get them, go to otbdisc.com, use code CHILI for free shipping. Helps me out, helps you out. And yeah, 2024 stock run Halo Destroyer, best destroyer released of the year, in my opinion, excluding two that I didn't get to test. See you next time. Peace.